Welcome to Keto Meals and Recipes.com. Today, I thought I would make a very easy keto dessert recipe, my Keto Raspberry Mousse Parfait, which is a recipe from my e-cookbook, Keto Desserts and Treats. If you haven't seen my preview video about this cookbook or checked out the cookbook itself, this cookbook uses my sugar-free sweetened condensed milk or my dairy-free sweetened condensed milk as a key ingredient in all the featured dessert recipes. So if you would like to see the kind of recipes I have included in this e-cookbook, please watch the preview video. And then, if you like what you see, you can easily sign up and get the free e-cookbook. There are no obligations whatsoever. And for your convenience, both of these links and the link for the Keto Raspberry Mousse Parfait written recipe will be posted in the description below. If you'd like to support me, please consider watching the entire video, because as I go through the video, I also explain things such as why I'm using sweetened condensed milk rather than just a sweetener, and I also assemble my parfait in several different ways. I do this so you can see the possibilities and perhaps get inspired when you make your own parfait. If you like this recipe, also check out the end links, because the end links are always chosen very carefully to relate to the video I'm posting. And the last order of business, I would greatly appreciate it if you could share this recipe and my channel link with someone that you know. Word of mouth is an excellent way to help my channel grow. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, question, or suggestion if you have one. Give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, ask a question, or leave me a suggestion. And if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I would be greatly honored to have you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Now let's get started and focus on this recipe. The macronutrient ratio for this Keto Raspberry Parfait is 7.9 to 1, with 7.2 grams of total carbs, 2.5 grams of dietary fiber, resulting in only 4.7 grams of net carbs per delicious serving. This recipe is actually a compilation of a few other recipes I've already made, so there are 2 prep steps that you have to do ahead of time before making the parfait. The first step is to make the berry syrup, and for that I use my sugar-free blueberry syrup recipe. But in this version I'm going to replace the blueberries with raspberries. Or you could use whatever fruit you like best that is also low carb. Fresh raspberries are quite expensive right now, so instead I'm going to use my frozen raspberries. If you do use frozen raspberries or any frozen fruit, please read the label very carefully and make sure there's no sugar added, and the only ingredient are the actual fruit. Okay, so now put the frozen fruit into a small pot. Oh dear, I don't have enough frozen raspberries, so I'm going to actually top this syrup up with a bit of fresh strawberries. Add the lemon juice. Next, add your sugar-free sweetener. As always, I prefer to use my monk fruit-based sweetener, but you're free to use whatever sweetener you like best and that you have locally available. And then just cook on medium-low heat, stirring occasionally as the berries thaw and the fruit comes to a light simmer. But be careful and don't overcook. You're not making a jam. Just follow the directions on the sugar-free blueberry syrup. And just as a reminder, any recipe or video I mention, a link will be posted in the description below. When your berries have simmered for a few minutes and your sweetener has dissolved, that's why you're cooking it, you can use a hand blender or an immersion wand and blend to break the fruit into very small pieces. This will produce a nice texture, but still a little bit coarse, which I often like. However, if you prefer a smoother texture, as I do for this particular recipe, I let the cooked syrup cool just a bit, and then I transfer it to my bullet and puree the fruit. I like the pureed consistency because the texture is still slightly coarse from the ground up seeds. But the benefit of this is that your seeds won't get stuck in your teeth, which raspberries tend to do a lot. Another prep step I do ahead of time. In this step, you're removing the seeds purposely in order to have a clear and seedless syrup. You're going to need about 1/3 to about 1/2 of a cup of this strained syrup, and that's in order to color and flavor the mousse. And when you have done these 2 steps, just set the pureed syrup and the strained syrup aside for a few minutes. And if you have leftover syrup and you're wondering what to do, you can just freeze it and have it on hand This frozen syrup will keep well in the freezer for several months, and you can have it on hand next time you want to make a dessert. The next ingredient that you'll also have to make is my sugar-free sweetened condensed milk. While we're at it, I would like to mention that this entire parfait can be made dairy-free. All you have to do is substitute the whipped cream with full-fat coconut cream, which you then whip up, and then also use the dairy-free sweetened condensed milk. After you have made the sugar-free sweetened condensed milk, I'd like to emphasize, do not use it while it's still warm. Having done the 2 prep steps, the last step is to whip up the heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to whip it to a medium stiffness stage. At which point you simply add your room temperature sweetened condensed milk and continue whipping to a medium stiffness stage. Because I'm going to make 2 different flavors, I'm going to divide the whipped cream mixture or mousse into 2 bowls. To one of my bowls, I'm adding the freshly squeezed lemon juice and then stir to combine. If you're using fresh lemon juice, just be careful you don't add too much liquid because the mousse will become runny. But if you do want a more lemony or tangy flavor, I'd like to recommend a product such as this True Lemon. It is just dehydrated and powdered lemon juice, and by the way, it also has lime juice and other flavors. Then to the other bowl, just add the strained syrup and stir well. I first added the 1/3 syrup, but if you want a stronger raspberry taste and a deeper pink color, just add more of the strained syrup, like I'm doing here. For this version, in total, I ended up using the entire ½ cup of the strained syrup. To make the assembly of this parfait easier for myself, I like to put the 2 different mousse flavors and the raspberry puree into separate piping bags. I find this especially useful when assembling, when I use a decorative glass, especially one with a narrower opening at the top. For this first demonstration, I will begin with the strawberry mousse. Put your piping bag all the way to the bottom, and then I squeeze to fill about 1/3 of my glass. Next, I use the piping bag with the raspberry puree and squeeze enough to get a nice band. How thick your band will depend on what kind of glass you're using, whether it's wide or narrow. And the next thing I do is top with my lemon mousse. The combination and order you arrange your ingredients for the parfait is completely up to you. And lastly, I garnish with a fresh raspberry, and if you have any on hand, a mint leaf or 2. These are just a few suggestions how I assemble the parfait, and while I'm at it, I'd like to mention that you can use just one flavor, either just lemon mousse or just raspberry mousse or blueberry mousse or whatever berry you have on hand and prefer for your fruit layer and to make the mousse from. Do let me know what fruit you would use and how you would layer it. I'm always open for new ideas. Now, to explain why I use my sweetened condensed cream, it's because if you just add the sweetener to the heavy whipping cream as you're whipping it, you will end up with sweet whipped cream, which is okay, and for some desserts it's quite desirable. However, I find that since the sweetened condensed milk is cooked and the raw cream taste is gone, the taste is sweet, creamier, and more subtle, which gives it more of a real mousse flavor and texture, especially if you combine the whipped cream or whipped mousse with any fruit or lemon juice. You'll find that by using the sweetened condensed milk, you'll end up with a richer, deeper flavor, and as I've said, a much better texture, and as a result, a more genuine mousse mouthfeel. In my opinion, it's not just throwing a few ingredients together that look like the end product, but the important thing is how does it taste. And as I've said, in my opinion, just whipped cream with sweetener and then the fruit is quite okay for some desserts. But if you want the next level taste and the proper mousse texture, I hope you will try this version of my Keto Raspberry Mousse Parfait. Thank you very much for watching this entire video, and I would be delighted and honored if you would come back and check out the next video when I post it. Until then, stay well and have a wonderful day.